I love coffee. These are a list of horror movies that I made that to me are well near perfect or are perfect horror films to me. And, some people will see this list and, have criticisms and say, like, I don't think that's a perfect horror film. You're entitled to that. So I hope you enjoy my list. First up, I talk about this movie a lot in videos, but one of my favorite horror films of all time, and that's the original Halloween from 1978. I've mentioned many things about it in other videos, but I'll just leave it at, it's so simple of a movie, but the execution was just perfect. And you can't say enough good things about it. Almost everyone has seen this movie to some extent, even in passing. So Halloween 1978 it's a perfect movie. Next one is one that is of more recent memory, and that is The Witch from 2015, directed by Robert Eggers. Now, this movie, when I first saw it, I really, really liked it, but I didn't think that it was as good as I think it is now. This is a movie that, when I first saw it, awesome, but once I kept thinking more and more about it, a lot of movies do this for me where I'll like it, but it doesn't really, really hit with me until much, much later. And this is one of those movies that did that for me. And The Witch, as upon every rewatch for The Witch, I love it more and more. And it's perfectly executed. It's so unique, and it's historical, being Old English, and it had such an authentic feel to it. And you can definitely tell that in a movie. Not that there's anything wrong with Marvel films, but it's you clearly know that they're doing everything in front of a green screen and kind of have to play make-believe. But just this with The Witch is just, everything just feels so authentic, and it really feels like you're back in the olden days before technology and everything, and just a very simple story, and classic tale of paranoia and such. And I love the ending. And yeah, some people probably saw The Witch and thought nothing of it because they wanted more just things that pop out and go boo, and that's completely okay. But to me, The Witch is just a great way of storytelling. And to me, I can't say enough good things about it. Every time I watch it, I'm just completely enticed in it. Next up is one that's probably widely acclaimed by most people, even people who aren't big horror fans, but those who have seen it can't say enough good things about it, and that is The Shining from 1980 with Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. And this is one of those movies that every time I watch it, I'm completely enticed in it. Every line of dialogue, the setting, how it's shot, and there's classic behind the scenes stories you hear where Stanley Kubrick, the director, basically borderline mentally abused Shelley Duvall, and so she had the worst time filming this. It's definitely tough to wrap your head around it because not being there, you didn't live through it, but he really brought out an amazing performance from Shelley Duvall, and just everything in this movie is just immaculate looking. And I don't really see a lot of movies being made nowadays that could ever measure up to everything, from the cinematography to the dialogue. The pacing is just perfect. It's such a long movie, but just every second of it, you're just in it. And Kelly and I got to see this on 35 millimeter in a theater in Baltimore, Maryland, and that was a great experience. And seeing movies like that with a wide audience, you could it's one of those where being with a crowd actually enhances the experience. And everyone was totally into the movie, even for seeing it several times. Most people who went to this are big film buffs, and it's incredible. Next up is a movie that I always say it's a B movie that's way too good to be considered a B movie, and that's the movie ReAnimator from the 80s, and that stars Jeffrey Combs. And it's about a medical student. He creates this serum that pretty much reanimates dead tissue, or AKA brings dead things back to life. And a lot of the movie is him and his roommate kind of just testing this serum on different things. They first start with like a cat, and like then it gets just way out of control. It gets so gory, but it's so over the top in its gore and just antics that it's hilarious. You can't help but laugh at it. And it's a great, like, you know, if you don't mind gore, like, this is a really funny movie. Everything from it, from being just 90 minutes, it's to the point. It doesn't miss a beat with anything. And this was based off an H.P. Lovecraft story called Herbert West ReAnimator. And I have read that short story. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember the movie is a lot different from the story. But the movie in itself is very, very good. It's a lot of fun. It's real easy. It's an easy watch. Like, if you're a horror buff and you haven't seen ReAnimator, like, you'll have a blast with it. It's, you know, Jeffrey Combs is so charismatic, like, in every role he's in, but this is pretty much his bread and butter, is ReAnimator. Yeah, he was born to play Herbert West, and just all the antics that happen, it's so indescribable. Like, it's just pure madness, and I love every second of it. And there's this movie, the very beginning, it almost sounds like you're like, did they take the music from Psycho? It sounds exactly like the introduction, like the opening credits to Psycho. But I think the composer, Richard Band, was maybe trying to pay homage, but it was almost borderline ripoff. Like, yeah, like pretty much if you know the music from Psycho and you watch the opening credits to ReAnimator, you're like, is this Psycho? Is this the same music? It's not, but it's like, it's so close that it sounds like it's the music from Psycho. But I digress. Minus that, like, this movie is so fun. It's such a blast. The first time I watched it, I was blown away by how much fun it was. And I was like, yeah, this movie it just starts. It just goes. It's like, it doesn't like mess around. Like, you jump right into it. And that's what I love about it. It's just straight to the point. And yeah, so if you're a big horror fan and you've never seen ReAnimator, do yourself a favor. It's definitely worth checking out. Speaking of the Psycho music, next up is Psycho. This is a perfect horror movie to me. Some people would say maybe it's more of a thriller, but, you know, thriller and horror there's some blurred lines between those two genres. So a lot of times if something falls under the thriller genre, it usually has a lot of horror aspects to it. And to me, Psycho is a great horror film. Alfred Hitchcock is known as like the master of the macabre or master of suspense. And for good reason, because this movie is well considered one of his most famous films of all time. And, you know, Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates is incredible. This movie completely changed the course of how you can tell a story and how you can make a movie. By, you know, killing off your protagonist like 30, 40 minutes in, and then it goes in a whole other direction. And that's what I love about this movie. And this is the type of movie I would have loved at the time that it came out in theaters, like in 1960. I would have loved to be, you know, in that audience and just, you know, everyone's jaws dropped, you know, when, you know, the main character gets killed off in, you know, the first 30 minutes of the movie. And yeah, Psycho is just perfect, you know. Even to this day, even if you've never seen like Psycho all the way through, you know the twist because it's such a famous movie. And the shower scene, like, everyone was afraid to take a shower after seeing this movie. So to me, it's perfect. It's iconic. You can't go wrong with watching the original Psycho. They did do an American remake of this a couple of years later, I believe. But while the American version, some people could say, is pretty good, I definitely prefer the foreign version, and that is the movie Let the Right One In. I love this movie so much to the point where I've read the book. I have seen the movie so many times. This is one of those movies that was just really special. The first time I watched it, this is a great movie to put on, you know, during when it's like winter out, where, you know, no one really wants to go outside or do much. So you could say this is like a rainy day type movie, but, you know, this movie takes place in the winter time, and it covers everything from bullying to, you know, being a loner, having a lot of anger. The main character, Oscar, you know, he's just bullied by all these people. He has these, you know, fantasies of being able to get back at them. And he ends up befriending this girl who moves next door named Ellie. They were both kind of like used to being alone, and then they both, you know, kind of befriend one another. And, you know, they start to kind of form a romance even for being such young kids. And I love both their characters because I can see myself and Oscar. Like, you know, if you've ever dealt with bullying, you can definitely relate to Oscar. Because this movie is technically a vampire movie, it's, you know, vampirism has been kind of ruined by Twilight, but this is probably the best vampire movie ever made. And just because Ellie is a vampire, she's like 12 years old and doesn't age, and the person that she lives with isn't her actual parent. There's kind of like this mystery of being like, you know, was it just this person that like took her in and is just trying to help her? And, you know, he like the guardian of Ellie is like, he goes out and tries to like, you know, discreetly kill somebody so that she can drink blood. And, you know, like in the beginning, like he tries to do that, it backfires, and, you know, she basically just has to go out and do it herself. And even while it's like she is forced to kill people because she needs to stay alive by drinking blood. So as the movie goes on, it's strange. As I'm describing this movie, it doesn't really sound that much like a horror film. It sounds kind of like a love story. And it kind of is. I mean, to me, this is a movie that's way too good just to be considered a horror film. Like, the cinematography is beautiful. The score, especially. I mean, while there is, you know, these really scary musical moments, a lot of the movie has, like, this very calm and kind of somber type sound to it. And I love the score of this movie because of that. It's funny because of having two 12-year-olds like kind of fall in love with one another and, you know, form this relationship. It's probably one of the better love stories of, like, you know, usually if you think of like a love story of like a romance movie, it's funny, like this one comes to mind for me. And yeah, I can't say, like, I could go on a lot about this movie, but for the sake of just trying to sum it up, like, just watch Let the Right One In. If you see Let Me In, like, I would say watch that after watching Let the Right One In, because Let the Right One In is just such a treasure, and Let Me In is just kind of like, okay, clearly we want to make this more accessible for audiences, so let's make an American remake. And it's like, it's fine, but you're really missing out on Let the Right One In, I think. Next is John Carpenter's The Thing. This movie is just the ultimate tale of paranoia. It's an amazing achievement in prosthetics, and like practical effects. And there's a lot of other movies that will have like this movie on in its own, in the movie that you're watching. But it's in there for good reason, because the practical effects, it's so good looking. It looks so real with, you know, this literal thing that just like, you know, is a shapeshifter. It, you know, anything it touches, it can form the shape of, and no one, like everyone in this, you know, in this group of people, like out in the middle of nowhere in like Antarctica, it seems like, you know, they don't know who is who, if like the person they're talking to is really them or it's the thing. And yeah, this is just such an like edge of your seat type movie. And if you're easily grossed out by gore, it's, you know, I still think you need to look past that, because this is just an amazing movie. And I can't believe when this came out, it was so critically panned and said, this movie is disgusting. And it's like people just couldn't look past the practical effects and the gory effects. It was like, when you look past all that, like, you just have a really, really good edge of your seat movie. And I'm shocked of how, like, no one could look past, like, when the thing would shapeshift and, like, you know, somebody's head would fall off and then it would grow like these spider tentacles and stuff like that. Like, no one could look past that. It was like, to them, they just thought it was just this gory, disgusting movie. But I mean, even in that, it's like, that's so cool looking. Like, all the effects, it's just amazing looking. And yeah, this is a perfect movie because it also ends on, you don't have all the answers. It ends on just this big question mark, but in a good way. You're like, it just makes you think of all the different scenarios. You're like, you know, the two characters who are left at the end, you're like, which one of them has to be the thing? But you don't know who is, and you're not given the answer. You can only come up with, you know, there's theories about it on the internet you can look up, but I love like movies or shows that just kind of leave a big question mark, because to me, mysteries that's what leaves you with, like, that's what makes it stick with you. It's the big question mark, and this movie ends on a really big question mark, and that's what I love about it. So yeah, if you haven't seen John Carpenter's The Thing, like, what are you doing? Like, if you like movies and you haven't seen it, why aren't you watching it? Next is a classic black and white film, and that is Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero. You know, he is the zombie king. You know, this movie changed the course of a lot of filmmakers. This movie was made like next to nothing, and like, it shows that, but in a really good way, because this was such a big influence to small filmmakers. Like, oh wow, I can, like, you know, I can film just this low budget film. I can get people from the town, like, who aren't even paid just to be actors. And, you know, you had a black lead for, at the time, was like unheard of. And this movie did an amazing thing where you had, you know, two opposing sides of people where, you know, you could see, you know, both sides of their argument being like, we should stay in this house and board it up. And then some people were like, no, because you're just going to be cornered and, you know, we're all going to die. And, you know, this is what spawned the zombie genre. And, you know, it goes to show, it's like, if you were ever a fan of The Walking Dead or any, like, later zombie movies, go back to this, Night of the Living Dead, and you will see, like, why this was so influential for so many of, you know, horror filmmakers and the zombie genre in general. While we're on the subject of Night of the Living Dead, I have to talk about the 1978 version of Dawn of the Dead. And that's not to be confused with Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead from 2004. I've seen that movie, but it's been a very long time since I've seen it. And I can't really judge it because I know a lot of people really like that movie. But watching the original Dawn of the Dead from 1978, it is, to me, like, you wouldn't think, like, you make such a revolutionary film like Night of the Living Dead, and then you go to make Dawn of the Dead, you're like, this is kind of like a sequel type thing, and, like, it's still just as good, and to some people, if not better. And it's, to me, a perfect horror film. You have good characters, you have, you know, them being trapped basically in this shopping mall, trying to get away from all these zombies, you know, the paranoia, you know, like, people just trying to get along and survive. And, like, while this movie is very edge of your seat and very thrilling, it's also really funny. There's a scene involving pies that's actually pretty funny. And yeah, like, I think this covers everything under the sun, like, with, you know, it's funny, it's scary, it's thrilling, but also, like, another thing I love about this movie is the first, like, 10 minutes, like, the movie just starts, and the first 10 minutes is just pure panic. And I love that about it, because it's these people at a news station, and just, they immediately start panicking, and everyone's basically running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Everyone's freaking out because there's the dead are returning to life and, are taking over basically. And the news is like, doesn't know what to do on covering it. And I love that about it. And because one of the main characters works at that news station. But yeah, I like just talking about this now makes me want to watch it again. It's awesome. Yeah. So, to those, I would say I guess we'll do a horror flip flop here is I will go back and watch Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. And if I do that, and if you've seen Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead from 2004, go back and watch George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead from 1978. We'll do a flip flop. I'll go here, you guys go here, and then we'll compare the two. But yeah, I mean, I hear both. I hear great things about Zack Snyder's. It's weird because I know I've seen it, but I just can't remember it. But I guess I'll have to revisit it. But George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, The Zombie King, check it out. Next up is another 70s film that to me is just perfect. They never really recaptured the magic of it with the sequels. I would say so the movie I'm covering is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Most of the sequels haven't really measured up. I will defend Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because it's hilarious and ridiculous in every aspect in the best way. But I don't really consider Texas Chainsaw 2 to be a perfect movie. But the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, I would consider a perfect horror film. This perfectly has just the group of kids, traveling in a van, and then they pick up some weird hitchhiker, they kick him out, and they kind of just stumble upon this random town, and, you come into contact with Leatherface, and, while this movie didn't really have blood and gore in it, really, it really captured just the brutality of Leatherface. And because, you didn't see, blood or any, you didn't see him, bludgeon anyone, but one of the characters, right when he goes in this house and Leatherface, swings open the door, and he just takes that hammer and just, knocks the guy right in the head. It's you feel that. And then he takes one of the main character girls and he, puts her up on the meat hook, and then she's just, screaming, and you see no blood, but you really feel the brutality there. And just the last 20 minutes of this movie is just sheer terror. And it's this was made in 1974, and even now it's watching it, you're just holy crap, this is intense. And yeah, Tobe Hooper knocked it out of the park with it. And it's funny, even though he went on to make Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is the polar opposite of that. It is just you went from just real brutality and disgustingness and, just this vile movie to kind of a vile movie, but just totally ridiculous and hilarious. But I would recommend watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 if you like really silly movies. But yeah, the original is just, you cannot replicate something like that. And that's why I think a lot of the Texas Chainsaw remakes and the sequels, they don't do any justice to the original story. And while there are a lot of horror sequels I really like, I really don't think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series really ever measures up to the first one. And while I love the second one, everything after that is not good at all. Next up is another foreign film. They did do an American remake of this because they can, but this is a movie called Martyrs. And Martyrs, I would put a big asterisk next to it. I think it's a perfect horror film because while it's extremely brutal and very, very disturbing, I would say this is probably the most disturbing movie that I've ever seen. And I've seen a Serbian film, and I have not seen Salò, but I hear that movie is also very disturbing. But Martyrs, at least to me, has taken the cake on the most disturbing film I've seen. And for good reason. This has a lot to do with religion. It has a lot to do with brutality and torture. And, if hearing those words from me, if that doesn't entice you at all, then you definitely stay far from this movie as possible. But while in all the brutality, the torture of this movie, like you pretty much just watch these two people get tortured like the whole movie, and like it is very hard to watch and very disturbing, but it just has this big existentialism throughout the movie, and it makes you really think, especially at the end of the movie. And you know, it's basically, it's like this group of people that take certain people under their wing and just torture them so much to the point where they think they can see the afterlife. This sounds very strange, me describing it, but they basically torture them to the point on where they're on the brink of death, to where they think they can see the afterlife. And the end of the movie, you have this leader of this cult basically like tries to find out from this girl who's been tortured like for half the movie if, you know, there's an afterlife or whatever she reveals. And I mean, I'm kind of spoiling this, but you don't know what she says to her, but she basically like reacts in a way that's just super weird and super irrational. And I love, like I said earlier, movies with just a big question mark at the end, and that's what this movie does. And while you just have this really brutal, disturbing experience, and then you go to just this existential area about, you know, us as a species and if there is an afterlife and such. And like somehow this movie captures that so well. And this is a movie that, like I said, is not for everyone. And I know some people will probably watch this movie and like just be really angry at it after watching it. And like, you know, because this movie will stick with you whether you like it or not. And, you know, so take it with a big grain of salt. But to me, this was a horror experience like no other when I watched it. I watched it by myself. I did show Kelly this movie, and even she really liked it despite its content and such. The thing I love about foreign horror films is it goes to places that are like the darkest part of our minds. And a lot of foreign horror movies are not afraid to go there. And I feel like a lot of, you know, American, like kind of more accessible mainstream movies, they're afraid to go to that place. They kind of want to just have like, you know, these ghosts that go boo at you, and that's about it. A lot of mainstream movies are like that, but this movie like really sticks with you. And like, while it's a very tough experience to get through, it's definitely worth your time watching, especially if you're a film buff and you haven't seen Martyrs. I would definitely suggest watching it, because even with all the disturbing and brutal content in this movie, it's still a very, very well made movie. And even I have the DVD of Martyrs, and even the director has a introduction before the movie starts, and he says, you know, I'm sorry for, you know, all the content in this movie, but he's like, I hope regardless you can enjoy this movie for, you know, the content that we were going for to really capture it. And I don't condone anything like this. It's like, it's sad that like a director has to say something like that, but I'm glad that he kind of came on and said like, look, this is obviously a movie, and this has very disturbing, you know, this has very disturbing content in it, but I hope you don't have to take that just at face value, and you can look past the disturbing content and see, you know, a lot of substance below the surface. And that's what I liked about the director introducing this movie and the movie itself. There's a lot more to it than just a lot of the disturbing, brutal content that's in it. So definitely watch Martyrs, the foreign version, not the American version. I mean, I feel bad saying not the American version because I have not seen the American version, but I've read some reviews, and some of the people said a lot of the, you know, the emotional impact is not there at all in the American version, and the foreign version, it really captures, you know, the emotion of, you know, you going to a very, very dark place, and, the foreign version obviously does that, but to me, this is a perfect horror movie that you should definitely see if you think you can handle it. I would say if you've seen stuff like, I would say if you've seen movies like Solo or 120 Days of Solemn, or you've seen a Serbian film, I think you could definitely handle this movie. A lot of people say a Serbian film is like the most disturbing thing they've ever seen, but to me, a Serbian film, while I think that is a very well-made movie, it goes strictly for shock value. And to me, I got to a certain point in that movie where I was like, this is just trying too hard to shock me, so it took me out of it. Martyrs and did not do that at all. Next up is Dario Argento's Suspiria. I fell in love with this movie just based on the sheer fact of just the cinematography, the colors. This is a gorgeous looking movie. If you could actually say that a horror film is gorgeous looking, this is the movie that you would describe. It's really, really colorful for a horror film. Like, there's a lot of greens and reds, which are kind of like Christmas colors, but captured something special with the 1977 movie Suspiria. And they did remake this in 2018. They did an American remake, and I would actually say that the remake is really, really good as well. I would not say it's perfect. The Suspiria remake, though, is a very long movie. It's close to like 2.5 hours long, and I would definitely say to check that out. I think it's definitely not a movie that you would watch all the time, though, because of how long it is. But the 1977 Suspiria is like maybe an hour and 40 minutes. It's just a gorgeous looking movie. There's not much story to it. It's basically just this girl who goes to a ballet school and, a number of murders happen. But it's incredible. Like, you watch this movie strictly for the cinematography and just, how the movie looks. Like, it is a masterpiece of beauty in the horror genre to watch. And if you are into cinematography and wanting to capture what, a really good looking film would look like, Suspiria is definitely some homework for you to do. Next up is a summer classic that made people scared to go into the water, and that is Jaws from 1975. Steven Spielberg, he went on to make a lot of really great movies, I would say, but he never really did a whole lot with the horror genre, and to me, Jaws is a horror film. I've gone to video stores and I've seen Jaws under the action genre. I don't consider it an action movie. You could say it's a drama, maybe, but to me, Jaws is a horror film. Like, it is horrific. You don't want to see a kid get, eaten by a shark. And this is the ultimate shark movie. Like, Jaws spoiled people for shark movies, because one of the first shark movies you see is Jaws, like, good luck trying to live up to that after someone sees Jaws, because there is not much shark movies that have lived up to Jaws since then. You have the classic "Smile, you son of a," and then Chief Brody shoots the tank thing inside the shark's mouth and blows it to smithereens. Like, you have great characters that, the movie takes its time with you getting to know the characters, but it has the classic, beginning part of a horror film where these, teenagers or whatever, they're going out, to the beach when it's late at night and decide to go for a swim. You have the girl at the beginning of the movie. She's the one who gets taken by the shark, and her significant other falls asleep on the beach drunk, and he wakes up and he's like, where'd she go? And we have, at the time I'm recording this, 4th of July is coming up, and I would say Jaws is a good 4th of July movie because everything takes place around the 4th of July weekend. So definitely watch that for your 4th of July, I would say. But Jaws, it's so perfect. It knows not to show the shark too much until the very end, but yet it's terrifying. And, Jaws is, sharks are a very real thing. While sharks don't target people to eat them, but shark attacks happen. While it is very rare, It's like just the thought of being like, I can go into the ocean and then just be attacked by a shark randomly. That is terrifying. And that's what's scary to me. Not, I went into a house and it's haunted or whatever. To me, like real life stuff like serial killers and sharks is what scares me. But Jaws is like a perfect horror film to me. Next up is a really good serial killer type movie, and that is Silence of the Lambs. And this is one of those rare times where a horror movie actually gets nominated for an Oscar. And Anthony Hopkins won for Best Supporting Actor for his role as Hannibal Lecter. And Hannibal Lecter is, like a lot of film buffs say, he's not in this movie all that much, but anytime he's on screen, he really eats up the scenery and really steals the show. And that's not to take away from Jodie Foster, who plays Clarice Starling. Like, she does an amazing job as well. This is a great thriller and great horror movie. I consider this horror because there are some pretty horrific scenes in this movie. Like when Clarice goes and is investigating this case to find Buffalo Bill. She goes in this one garage and finds someone's literal severed head inside of a jar. When Hannibal Lecter escapes, he literally hangs up one of the security officers like he's a freaking angel, basically like a blood eagle, like from Viking days. Like his back, his back is spread open like an eagle, and he's just hanging there. It's like, geez. And yeah, he's wearing someone else's face and literally wakes up in the ambulance and takes off someone's face. You're like, Jesus, it's crazy. And for good reason. And this is one of those movies too, where it's even if you're not a horror fan, this is such an enticing movie. It's just amazing storytelling. Everyone involved did an amazing job. And it's a good reason that it was nominated for an Oscar. Because while the horror genre is kind of written off, this was a movie that could not be denied. And yeah, I mean, if you're a horror fan, you've most likely seen it. But to me, this is a perfect horror movie. Speaking of a nomination of an Oscar, The Exorcist is my next one that's a perfect horror movie. While some people could say that this is kind of funny nowadays to watch, and it's not nearly as scary as the time it came out, it's still a good testament to how well this movie was made. It being from 1973, Linda Blair still scaring the crap out of people. Her performance is amazing. And yeah, I mean, literally this movie popularized the phrase, the power of Christ compels you. And everyone knows what that's from. Yeah, while some of the effects is when Linda Blair's character vomits, I think they said they used pea soup, and I was like, that definitely looks like good vomit, I would say. But yeah, everything. I've been to the Exorcist steps. It's really, really steep. So when, me being able to see the Exorcist steps and then watching the movie where the one priest flies out of the window and then falls down that big staircase, I really feel it now because I've personally been to the Exorcist steps, and those are some steep steps. It's that would really, really hurt. Yeah, The Exorcist, it's a testament to the horror genre. It's the horror genre is written off, but this movie was nominated for an Oscar, and William Friedkin is a great filmmaker. And yeah, this was a movie that couldn't be denied by the Academy. So it's a perfect horror film to me. All right, coming down to the very end, I know this is a long video, but my last two are within the same series, actually, of movies. And I'm going to end on a fun note, and that is Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Now, Evil Dead 2, some people would actually say The Evil Dead would be considered a perfect horror movie. I really like The Evil Dead, but I would say, to me, it takes a little too long to get going. That's just my opinion, but I can definitely see why people would say the Evil Dead trilogy is the perfect, our perfect horror films, and I can definitely see that. But I would just say Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, because Evil Dead 2, it's almost like a retelling of the first movie, but a little more fun and a lot more gory and like ridiculous and over the top. Evil Dead 2 is famous for having Ash Williams, his hand gets infected, so he takes the chainsaw and saws his own arm off, and and then replaces his arm with a chainsaw. It's awesome. And like, this is where I think Ash Williams was really born, was Evil Dead 2. And I love that Evil Dead 2 leads into Army of Darkness because, Ash is sucked into this like vortex and then goes back in time to like medieval times, and then Army of Darkness begins. And Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness just have so many funny lines, and Bruce Campbell is so charismatic, and I love Sam Raimi as a filmmaker. Like, he's so schlocky in his delivery. And there's even a part like from Army of Darkness where Ash like catches the skeleton where you can clearly tell it's just a puppet, just like basically just this like ragdoll like mannequin type thing. Ash catches it and then like breaks its back and then just chucks it. And I love that. His filmmaking style has bled through to his other more mainstream stuff, like when he did the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and and most recently he did the newest Doctor Strange movie. And it makes sense. I mean, he is just a really quirky and funny filmmaker, and to me, like, Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness like perfectly encapture that, and they're just so much fun to watch. And if you can't handle a lot of the gore effects and stuff, Army of Darkness is just a fun movie to watch. It's just really, really, really engaging. It's really fun. And it combines like two of my favorite things, like horror and like medieval stuff, and swords and shields, and it's just a fun movie. And yeah, both Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness are perfect horror films to me. On a side note, also watch Ash vs. Evil Dead to me, because that is a perfect series to me. It was a really, really good, solid 3-season show. I wish it continued, but the show ends on a really good note. And yeah, so if you like the Evil Dead movies and you haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead, you need to watch it. That was a long list. I'm sorry for the very, very long video, but I hope you all enjoyed. And if you watched to the end, thank you for watching to the end. If you really enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you in a future video. Bye.